professional communication. This is the beginning of my 13th year doing that. And I also teach debate. It kind of fell into my lap when our previous debate coach became a librarian at our sister school. And this is actually only the third year of us having a debate class. So I'm still trying to find my footing in debate as a coach, but I do have a lot of experience in the other side, the speech part of education. Since we switched to professional communication 2 years ago at my school, actually last year was the first year, so this is the second year, we were lucky enough that we had some extra CTE computer labs. How does that happen? But it did, and so all three of the professional communication teachers in my school wound up being able to move into a computer lab classroom. So when that happened to me last year, I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting, and it was. But I've learned a lot through that process about adding technology into my curriculum and using a lot more of it on almost a daily basis in my class. So that's why I signed up to do this. This is Victoria. She'll introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Victoria Graves. I'm from Texas City High School. I originally taught English 2 pre-AP, English 2, and then I got a Debate 1 class that had 4 students in it. And then I got an inter class, and now I do nothing but teach speech and debate all day long. I have 3 sections of debate 1, 2 sections of advanced debate, and 2 sections of oral inter. I love my world. At some point, the hospitality, who's like the home ec teacher on our campus, for some reason had a computer lab. I don't know. And they moved her upstairs where the ovens are. Makes sense. You teach home ec, you should have ovens. And there was a computer lab open, and I went, I think I should have that, because everybody else gets really mad whenever I book the computer lab for a week, and they want to kick me out. So I got it. But before that, whenever we were just starting out, I had to write a grant in order to get laptops. So if you are someone who, you don't even have a lot of technology for your campus and you want my grant, I'll send it to you. It's absolutely fine. My information is on the Padlet, whatever it's called. Mm-hmm. I also have a handout that I can give you so that you can use that as well. But this year I went ahead and I made my classroom completely digital whenever it came to oral interp and advanced debate. All of my assignments are online, everything. So students now have to actually use the resources online, and it's self-driven and self-led. So an LDer can actually walk into class and do LD things. My Congress kids can go in and do their Congress thing. CXers, all of them are individually doing stuff specific for their debate field. So I'm just going to share my triumphs and challenges so that you don't have to have the same problem I did whenever you go through that if you decide to do what I did.
And I'm J.P. Bugler. I'm at Lindale High School. This is my 7th year of teaching. What I'm going to walk you through today, some of the things I have, even though I think it's kind of funny, this is a technology-based session where we're having some issues with technology, of course, as always is the case in the classroom. But Lindale's a district that's a one-to-one iPad district. We also we drank the Google Kool-Aid, so that means that every teacher is using Google Classroom or is expected to do so. So similarly, my classes are 100% online. All of the resources I share with my students are done online. Every now and then we might break out paper for 1 or 2 assignments throughout the year, but that's pretty much it. I'll show you how I've incorporated a few things that have truly made my life easier in using some of the Google products, as well as some other things I found and stuff like that. This Padlet thing I'd never heard of. I'm already thinking what an incredible way to incorporate bell ringer or as an exit ticket. And you just have it right there. I can ask them a simple question, and I'm always trying to think of ways, and I'm grateful you shared that, that I can incorporate that and meet all of the district's expectations. But I'll also go through not just classroom stuff, but how I've used it on my speech and debate team to make my job easier there, because we need everything we can to make our jobs easier there. So.
Well, I'll start because I really don't have a whole lot to share with y'all today. Like I said, this is still kind of new to me, but I wanted to share Padlet, and I also wanted to tell you that one of the things that I've done with it just a little bit this year, I've used it, I think, once in my professional communication class, just kind of like on the first day, put your name, you know, what grade you're in, so they could kind of see who was in the room with them, especially since it is such a blended class. You know, you've got freshmen to seniors, or at least in my district, they're all in there, right? And so a lot of times they walk in on that first day and they're like, I know nobody in this room. Plus, in the school that I'm at, we've got a lot of military kids. So every year, all throughout the year, I'm getting kids that don't know who they are. So when I first saw Padlet, that was the first thing that popped into my mind, because that's how it was used. It was a, you know, tell us who's here in the room. And that kind of broke the ice real easily for them. But then in my debate classes, I was like, okay, what can I use this for? Like, this is great. They can all be working on something and see each other's answers. Well, what I had them do the very first day in my advanced debate class was tell me what their goals were for the year on the Padlet. And not just that, but in my debate classes, in my varsity debate, I'm letting them choose what events they're competing in, where in debate 1 I made them learn and try everything. And so in varsity debate, I said, okay, I want you to tell me what your number 1 choice event is and your number 2 choice. And I wanted them to pick a debate event and a speech event, because to me, I feel like you should be able to do both. And so I told them you have to pick one debate. So I had different columns. And Padlet is not just, there's different ways to set it up. This is just their general one, but you can make one with different columns. And so I did 2 speech columns, and I said, okay, you can pick extemp or original oratory. And then I did CX, LD, or Congress for my debate columns. I said, go put your name under there, under which one you're choosing. And then under each one, tell me what your goal for the year is in that event. And so then I could kind of start creating my teams of, okay, who are my Congress people? It was so much easier than saying, write it down on a piece of paper and then me having to go back through and organize it. It saved me so much time. Also, once I put them in their teams, I created a new Padlet, and I said, okay, now you're going to work together as a team and you're going to create team goals. What do you have to do as a CX team to be successful at our first tournament? And so they went in there and they kind of they brainstormed first, and then I said, okay, now you need to go back and organize them. Like, what's the first step? What's the second step? And the Congress did the same thing, so that they kind of started looking at this as a team sport. Whereas last year, Congress was like, well, I don't want to share my arguments with my teammates. And I'm going, why not? Y'all have to work together to save that. So I just wanted to share how I've used Padlet a little bit with my debaters as well. I mean, obviously, like I said, bell ringer or exit ticket, it's a great tool for that. Also, if you're popping in a movie and you have to do something, you could have them create questions on the Padlet, because you know how kids will get confused in a movie and they're talking to their neighbor and you're like, shh. You know, well, you can create a Padlet and be like, if you have a question, write on the Padlet, and they can immediately respond to that question right there during the movie without disturbing the whole class, basically. And I found that idea to do while my substitute was there yesterday and today. So that's what I use that for. I don't use Google Classroom because I use Edmodo. It's the same basic idea. And if your district, I think your district has to pay for Edmodo. I'm not 100% sure. Our district does. They encourage both Google Classroom and Edmodo, but they gave us training in Edmodo where they didn't in Google Classroom. So when I went and looked at Google Classroom, because I thought, well, maybe I'll like that one better, I couldn't even figure it out because I'd had no basis of training for it. Since I can't show you my actual Edmodo, there's no projector or anything, I made some copies. I'm sorry they're not the clearest copies ever, because JPEGs don't make real clear copies sometimes. But I just kind of wanted to show you some of the different things that you can do in Edmodo. And if you do have a district that uses it, it's an awesome way to make your classroom paperless. If you'll just pass those around. If there's not enough, I've got more. So I use this in both my debate classes and my professional communication classes. I use it in professional communications more than debate, but I've started incorporating it more in debate this year. And if y'all want to see what I'm talking about, basically you set up your different classes, and then you can do all sorts of things in here. Like at the top, you can see that my kids were doing a mock interview this week, and for professional communication right here, you can see that I sent out basically what's called a note to them with 2 documents attached. So right there on their computer in the classroom, they opened up the first document, which was the mock interview outline, and I had them go in and actually write down the questions they were going to ask if they were the interviewer, and it had all the other steps, like you have to kind of preview the interview and shake hands and do all that stuff, and then what to do at the end of the interview. But they went in, rather than creating the, like creating the wheel from from nothing, they had something to kind of base it on, and then that way they didn't script the interview too much. And since in my district, our fall semester is 20 days shorter than our spring semester, I'm not having time to like hold their hand right now. We're sprinting through this semester. And so they literally had 1 day to work with their partner in class. And I knew if I didn't give them something to start with, that it was going to be a nightmare, basically. That half of them wouldn't even get through, the first part of the interview with their partner in class that day. Also, I wanted them to see the rubric I was going to use, so I just attached both of them and I said, open them up. They're on your computer. You can access them from home. And guys, the kids can use Edmodo on their phones. There's an Edmodo app. So if you aren't a one-to-one district or you're not in a classroom with a computer, Edmodo works just like Google Classroom with their phones, with their smartphones. So a lot of them, when they were working at home, because I told them they could practice with their partner over Skype or FaceTime or whatever as well, because the interviews happen that way too, that they could pull that up right there as well and kind of look at what they were going to be graded on. Also, besides just sending out documents to them, obviously, you can send them places. They did a personal dialect map quiz. This was a little bit ago in the middle of September. And so that was basically just to go to this website without having to type in the URL. They just went into Edmodo, clicked, and it took them right to where they needed to be. Also, you'll see that you can have them turn things in. And so on the next page, on the back, we'll get to them turning stuff in a little bit more. And then Edmodo calls them quizzes, but I actually give them their multiple choice tests in Edmodo. Now, if it's you can do short answer and essay questions in there. Of course, you have to go back and actually grade those parts, but you can do a combination of true, false, multiple choice, and it's super simple to create a quiz, as they're called in there, which is a test in my class. And then the kids go in and take them, and you can randomize the questions, because obviously they're sitting there, they can see each other's screens, but it doesn't matter because they're not going to get the test questions in the same order. So they know it doesn't make any sense to look at their neighbor's computer. Okay, so I got into debate one a little bit on the second page. I did have them turn in speech outlines in Edmodo, and then once I click on what they've actually turned in, it opens it up on Microsoft Word online, and you can go in and type comments as you're grading it that way. I figured out after I graded a few that it took me about 3 times as long because I'm just used to grading on paper, so I actually wound up printing out their speech outlines, and it was only 19 kids anyway, so it didn't take too much paper, but I could still have them turn it in that way, and I can immediately see who turned it in when it was due at the end of class by clicking on the next page. No, actually I think it's on the last page. Yes, on the very last page. I'm going to go out of order for a second here. You can see here that you've got test grades because they were automatically graded for me, which is awesome. When they're done, it gives me their grade. And then for their outline, I can see that they turned it in immediately just by clicking on the progress tab in Edmodo, which is like your grade book basically in Edmodo. So if I need to enter things in my actual grade book, I just pull it up on the screen next to it, and I have 2 things right there next to each other. So also down at the bottom on the back page, it does your test evaluation of your questions, like how many kids got it right, how many kids got it wrong, right there in these little handy pie charts. So if you've got one that's mostly red, you can be like, oh, maybe I need to go back over that concept, or was that question worded badly? So you can fix that, and it saves all of the tests that you put in there, and you can go back and edit them for next semester or next year. And so that's what I did. Everything, I've only used this for 1 full semester, and that was last spring when I started using it. And so I've been able to tweak some stuff that saved me a lot of time from having to go back and retype everything in there. It's automatically saved. So Edmodo has a whole section of help stuff. I'm not an expert by any means, but if you do decide to use it in your classroom and you have a question, my email is both down here on the bottom and on the Padlet that I shared with y'all today. So hopefully I would be able to help you if you have any questions, or at least head you into where to look on their website for information. Another great thing about this is that when the kids sign up for your Edmodo class, the very first thing that pops up is a thing that says, put in your parents' phone number or email address. And they're like, do I have to? And I'm like, yeah, it just sends them a message saying, hey, my kid's using this program, and if you want to create an account as a parent to see what they're doing, to see what their assignments are, to see when things are due, to see what they made on their test as soon as they take it, then all they have to do is sign up. And last semester I didn't have any parents sign up at all. This semester about half of them signed up immediately. And I've gotten a few, hey, my kid's missing a test today. I noticed in Edmodo, when would they be able to come in, type of emails that immediately let me know, oh, the parents are actually using it. And so it's cut down a little bit on me having to contact parents, because they're a little bit like, they get an email that says, this is due in this class, as opposed to me having to track them down. So those are just some of the things that I've done. I'm gonna pass it on over. Are there any questions about Padlet or Edmodo? All right.
All right, I'll go next. So just to kind of remind you, my name is Victoria Graves. I do have a computer lab, but I understand if you do not have that resource available to you. I'm just gonna split this.
Did everybody get one of mine?
So I went ahead and I have placed a Google link to my drive for my classrooms for advanced debate and oral interp, depending on which one you like. I will tell you that the link I'm giving you does not allow for you to edit the documents, and it doesn't allow for you to edit my drive. I did this specifically because what I have found, even with my own students in class, is that if you click on like the original link, it will open up the document and allow for you to edit it, and then it changes the document. So that was really fun for the first kid who decided to open up their ballot reflection and decide to start typing on the actual document, and then everyone got to see his ballot reflection. So one thing I will absolutely preface all of this with is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to find problems with your technology. Take a minute, move on. Figure out a solution and move on with it. My advanced debaters were my guinea pigs. Oh well. And my oral interps got the benefit of not being the guinea pigs. It works out. One thing I will tell you is that you need to also consider what is available on your campus, whether or not your campus can actually hold 10 laptops on the Wi-Fi. If it can't, that's a problem. And whether or not students have access to the internet at home or their local library. I work at a school that has 60% low-income kids, so they don't always have the ability to access things at home, especially on the computer. So you need to really tell what works best for your district and like your classroom. Also make sure that you have administrative support. Whenever I decided to flip my classroom completely into being digital, I knew that I needed to go ahead and let my principal know, hey, heads up, I'm doing this. And yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle in the beginning, but I think this is going to be a really great opportunity to make sure that these kids are using the resources that we have available on campus. I know about Google Classroom. I tried to check it out for a little bit. My campus used Gaggle for a little while. There's also Office 365. There's Turnitin.com. There's Dropbox. There's all kinds of resources that you can use out there, and some are a little bit more pricier than others, and some are free. So you might actually find that on your campus there's already some talk about what programs to use, and if you can talk to that technology department and find out what they are already trying to do, you can actually have a voice and decide, hey, I'll test this out in my classroom, I'll be the guinea pig for it, and that way you can troubleshoot it, or you can be the one to say, no, we should go in this direction versus a different direction. Our campus decided to use Office 365. What we found is that some students didn't have accounts. Students that transferred weren't there in the system. So my first 2 weeks of this was very much like, oh, okay, so Johnny can't log into the computer. Okay, Johnny, you're gonna pair up with Megan, and you guys are gonna sit together, and I'm gonna print out 2 versions of the document, and we're just gonna do it on paper for the first week. And we're gonna be fine. We're going to live through it. So make sure that you are figuring out what works and what doesn't work for your campus. From my experience, my grades are set up like this. My daily grades are prep work. So that's the research that my kids do. That's the drills that they do, like practicing flowing. Whenever it's a quiz grade, it's them actually debating or actually speaking or actually performing. For example, one of the things that I do inside my classroom is called a 4-ballot assignment, where students are required to get 4 ballots and get one filled out from a student, one from a teacher, one from an adult, and one from whoever they want. And they're required to do an analysis over it before they can even do their final performance or before they can even do it at a tournament. So they're required to do that so many times. You can do that with an extemp speech, you can do that with an argument for a case, you can do that with an inter piece. I find that it helps them to get used to saying the piece over and over again. Plus it gives me to practice it before they do it for me. So that helps. Let me see. Several students enjoy being told what to do and when. So whenever I presented them with this grading contract that kind of provides them with like a menu option of what to choose for their daily grades and what to choose for a quiz grade and what to choose for a major grade, a lot of them were like, I don't like this. Why don't you just tell me what you want me to do? Okay, I mean, I would think that a teenager would rather like have a little bit of freedom in a classroom, but no, they wanted to know exactly what they wanted to, like what they need a timetable. Okay, cool. So I went ahead and found that I could choose or make recommendations for a kid, but you also have like your high achieving students that are like, oh yeah, I don't want to do this like little baby assignment. I would rather just like burn through my LD case and write it in 3 days. And I'm like, cool. Versus the kid who takes 10 days to write an LD case. It gives them a little bit of that flexibility, so the kid who's the high achiever no longer has to sit there and wait for the other one. It also allowed for them to share resources. If we're doing the TFA topic for September and October, they can actually create a little file and put all of their files in there and have it available to them. They don't cut the cards for each other, they're individually cutting cards because your argument might not be the same as the argument that I would make out of it. So I think that's kind of tailoring it to the kid and making it unique for them. And don't be afraid to admit your mistake. Here's one. Whenever they were going to turn in their assignments, they have a drive, it's like a cloud drive, and I said, hey, go ahead and name your drive Advanced Debate. So they all named their drives Advanced Debate. And I think, okay, this is great, because it tells me on the side whose drive it is. The problem was that my drive was also named Advanced Debate. So whenever I was like, open your Advanced Debate drive, I think that that means they should open theirs. They think it means open mine. Yeah. I've since fixed that problem. But like I said, you need to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. On the side, I have my email address. I have the links to my drive. I have other resources. You can check out my grading contract and my menu so that you can see if it works for you. I also did not come up with all of the assignments. So here's my little plug. From Convention 2015, Stacy Thomas and Regina Jennings did something very similar to this, and I went through theirs and I cherry picked what I wanted. I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah, I talked to them about it. Gina Lozano, same thing. Google URL Shortener is amazing for those really long URLs. If you need a short one for your kids, that works. QR codes works really great too. I just created a drive for all the important information that my parents needed, like the tentative tournament schedule, or my syllabus, my handbook, all of that is on a QR code, so they can just kind of walk by during open house and be like, click, and I'm like, oh, okay, so you have all the documents. Great, we don't have to talk about it anymore. Another thing that I use is Remind. So Remind.com is the Remind app if you aren't familiar with it. It is amazing and awesome. There's also GroupMe, whatever works for you and your team. And the last thing I'm going to say is a new thing I found. The abbreviated version is IDEA, but it's not like IDEA that you were taught like for teaching. It's actually I'm gonna find it. The International Dialects of English Archive. And what that does is that it has the same 2-minute story in different accents globally. So if your kid has an intert piece and they need an accent for a specific area, they can actually go in there and listen to it for 2 minutes. Again, that's the International Dialects of English Archive. If you just type in idea into Google, it will send you the disability one. And yeah, so there's that.
Great. So some of the stuff that I'll cover, this is wonderful to hear each of theirs because they're things that I think I'll actually be incorporating in my class, like I've already pointed out for one of them. But it's also great to see that we're from different school districts that have different expectations, and we have different tips and tricks that are work for us. I'm big on that. Do what works for you instead of trying to always try to fit this new mold that's coming out. I don't think that's always the best way to go. I'm the type of person who harps on the use of lecture still. I love just getting up and lecturing to my classes. Group work is like the bane of my existence. I hate it. I find it so difficult, but some people are fantastic at it. So I think you can still use technology even in those instances. I found a few ways that work for me and incorporate into my class, and my district seems to think I'm doing fine. So that's great. So let me pull this up. I have a few just like general tips, and I'm going to show you a few things off my iPad as best I can since we don't really have a projector as I get to them. But one of the things that I've incorporated, in fact that I did last week, is I've helped, feel like this is an easy thing you can do, make my test reviews really more interactive at this point through the use of a scavenger hunt, specifically through QR codes. If you're a district that has something like an iPad, every student has an iPad, or a smartphone perhaps, there I do actually use group work, and it works nicely that I don't have to have every kid downloading the QR code or reader or whatever. As long as one person has it, they can do it. So I set up my test reviews that way. I simply go to a QR code generator. If you just search that, some will pop up. I don't remember the names of them. I've used all of them, I'm sure, that are free. And then you can type in, you can put in picture images, text images, whatever you want. I type in the riddles that I'm going to use, which that's what takes the longest for me, not the tech aspects, which is just finding words that rhyme and trying to type all of those in. But then once you do it 1 year, you've got it set for the rest of the year. I do it on like my side of the school. I'm pretty fortunate that there's only like 3 or 4 classrooms on my side because it's like band and choir and debate, and so like we're expansive programs, so we take up a lot of space over there. And so I have the scavenger hunt occur all throughout there, up into our cafeteria and that kind of stuff. So I don't know about you, but it's pretty transformative to me when I had a kid literally running to answer a question about my test. That was a first for me when I started using it last year. So that's been really helpful. Also in like graphic creation, I'm going to show you an example in a minute of something I've done that helped with informative speaking with visual aids, but I've been using graphic creation for a little while. Canva, Adobe Spark Post, and even Google Slides are the ones that I've used that are particularly helpful. If you have access to those, great. If you can talk to your district about getting you access. Some of those are accessible from a web-based, so like a laptop or something like that, not just a tablet. So being an app or something that you'd have to download. So most of them have a web-based component to them as well. And then with Google Slides, if you have access to that, to like a Google Suite, you typically use that in your classes already. I think that there's a lot that can be done with slides that hasn't been done before. Specifically, teaching in a speech class, I think it's so important that we're using visual aids. I shied away from it honestly for a long time because like poster boards, I mean, we can use them for maybe one speech, and then I just want them to go away because it's just more of a hassle trying to get them created, turned in, and rubrics and everything with that. But I do think that visual aids are important, even though I can't really show you them that well during this session. So I think that there's a lot that you can do with that. Specifically on graphic creation, this is going to be a little hard to see, but I have a project that I have students do that we're actually coming up with now during once I get to teaching persuasion in my professional communications classes. The section that I do after like covering like propaganda techniques and pathos, ethos, logos, all of that, is I have them create I don't know how visible this is going to be, but I have them create a poster And so typically I would use something like Canva or Adobe Spark Post, but I recently have found that Slides is just as capable of this. So this is actually the example I showed them. It's a church that had a 5K run that they called the Superhero Sprint. Just having them identify like how are each of those, how is Pathos used, Logos, and Ethos used on this, and then beyond that, so that's the first thing I have them do, but we know that's like lower level thinking skills, or critical thinking, so then I try to get them to create beyond that. So then I kind of transition into their higher level thinking skill. And it's a great project that you can walk around, kind of individualize. Some students will take to it very quickly, but not all will. I've found that students are not as tech savvy as we think they are. I mean, if you've ever seen a student with a laptop just pecking at the keys, because we don't teach typing anymore, which is crazy to me. I know I'm young, but I learned typing in 7th grade, and I mean, it was a big deal to me, and so it's weird to me that students don't have that same knowledge. Yeah, go for
jump
it.
in on that. Yeah, I didn't think that I would have to explain to my students how to save a document.
So true.
So things that you think that they know aren't always there. Getting students to log into their email was something new. Having them write an email in the first place. A lot of them don't even like think about this, and they're like, I don't have an email. And I'm like, do you have a Twitter? Yeah. You have an email. You do. Okay, it's out there.
Yeah.
And so it's also a great opportunity to talk about internet etiquette and ethics. About whether what you put online doesn't really disappear anymore, and these are the kids that are going to be in the generation where someone can Google them and absolutely find their information that they might not want out there. Screenshots happen for Snapchat too. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. One tip on Google Slides, if you may not know this, I discovered this feature, maybe I'm like just the last of the party, but I incorporate a lot of videos already into my lectures. I discovered in Slides you have the ability under video options to set when the video starts playing within the video and when it stops. So that means if I create multiple slides using like the same example speech of a demonstration speech that I found on YouTube of some college class, that I could show, like if I like to teach the parts of the speech, like the intro, the body, the substructure, conclusion, all of that on separate days, and actually have them work on the outline during those days. So a little bit of lecture, showing them an example, getting them to identify the parts, and then let's work on our intros for the last part of class, and then the same thing for each of the other parts of the speech for the very first one. I found that was really helpful. So being able to just show them a snippet of that, and not me trying to sit there and remember, okay, that's where I stop it, but knowing it's already programmed in was wonderful. Also, it's a great way of editing things down, because I like to show clips from the TV show Friends, but not everything that they show is appropriate for our community of Glendale, Texas. So I have to make sure that I cut some of that out, and it's helped a lot. Along with that, with the videos, just a quick mention of YouTube. We all know it's out there, kids are on it all the time. I don't know how much you use the playlist feature though. It helps me so much whenever I am, inevitably in the communication field, we're doing research without even realizing it when we're looking at things for entertainment. I don't own a TV, so I don't have cable or anything like that. I don't have Netflix. So YouTube is where I go to watch like videos of actors interviewing actors. That's something I love. Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, those late night shows post most of their videos on YouTube anyways. So I watch a lot of interviews. And TED Talks and all of that's fun too, but inevitably I come across something that's just silly, and I recognize, like the video How Animals Eat Their Food is something that the kids have all seen, but to me it shows really well how we develop symbols in our culture, and how we can just take a couple of things that an animal does, a couple characteristics, and then we're able to identify it, which makes it funny. And so anyway, it works really well into the way that I teach, like the origins and basics of communication. And so the playlist feature allows you to create different playlists. I have, of course, a music playlist for whenever I'm they're doing work and I'm just trying to play music that I know is appropriate or whatever. I can have that playlist up and it's just cycling through different songs. But also, whenever I'm sitting at home and I'm watching a YouTube video and I realize it's going to work really well, like like one of my playlists is oratory writing tips. And so if I come across something where somebody in 2 minutes just covers how to incorporate active voice in writing or something like that, or there's plenty of other examples that I, of course, can't think of at this moment. But I just hit the little plus button at the bottom. It brings up all of my playlists, and then I add it to whatever playlist I want it to be in. And so then I have it for reference later, because I don't want to open up the PowerPoint or slides presentation that I use, embed the video, and I don't want to go through all that work. So I can have it all kind of in one place and slightly pretty organized, so that whenever I am at a teacher work day kind of a thing, then I can easily go back and start incorporating those videos and not be trying to remember what that one awesome video was that I thought the kids would like. The next thing, this was revelatory to me. YouTube also has a lot of great how-to videos. So with the new event for NSCA Informative Speaking, I've been fortunate enough to have a kid qualify to nationals the last 2 years. My first year, it was a girl that was 1 rank away from advancing to the top 60, and we didn't have any visual aids, and I was like, ugh! So I figured visual aids is something you need to get better at. So then last year I had 2 girls that advanced to nationals, one of them being Janine Tags. It's really helpful when a speech educator on the college level, her daughter goes to your school. So she's fantastic, her daughter is. She's great too. Her daughter was fortunate enough to advance at nationals to the top 60, first one I've had in informative. And so we're still learning though. We had visual aids for her, we knew that needed to be incorporated, and she did a great job. But now I'm looking at how do we get even better, because of course that little taste of success, you just want more. So I have a student that's currently working on, is done with the speech, and now we're working the visual aid portion about food waste, specifically like the waste of like produce, so like apples, oranges, vegetables, that kind of stuff. So don't steal that topic, we're using it. But I was talking to another coach, and he said, well, why don't you incorporate like, because I need to do a chart. I was like, but charts aren't fun. He said, well, why don't you incorporate a bar chart, like literally like a granola bar chart, to teach that? And I was like, that's brilliant. So just from that little thing, I don't know how well you can see this. This is just literally, I took Sharpie to paper and made this little bar chart of a Cliff Bar with the percentage that we needed to include, a Kind Bar, Nature Valley, and Nutri-Grain. So I did that. Now I am not an expert. I don't know how I turned that into what I need it to be. So I reached out to our graphic design teacher. I sent her this. I said, I need you to, at the very least, because I can teach myself some stuff, so I'm going to use slides to put it together, because I had watched some like YouTube tutorials on how to make posters out of slides on YouTube. And so I said, I need you to just take these bars and like cut them the way it needs to look. So she did. She cut them exactly the way I needed them to look, and then whoops, I'm having trouble clicking. And then I took to YouTube and slides to figure it out, and then that's our final product. So we actually pulled it off. It was amazing. So that was a really cool thing, and it took us a week, because it was emailing the teacher back and forth trying to figure it out, and then me sitting down with the student and trying to figure out exactly how I want it to look. But I was pretty impressed at how close we were able to get it. And that's not just from a competition standpoint though. I think that for our students who are just taking our basic speech classes because it's a class they need as a requirement, this is still a skill set that's incredible for them to have. To be able to create visual aids that are interactive and grab people's attention. So of course we're gonna make a joke in the speech as she goes into it about a bar chart, no, literally a bar chart, as she like transitions. And of course we all know that that little inclusion of humor and that tiny bit of interest is going to make it more engaging, where people are more gonna take in the material more. So that's a skill set we need to be teaching. And it's something I'm gonna try to incorporate into my professional communication classes down the road. I'm a little intimidated right now because I'm just kind of figuring it out, but it's helped a lot. The last thing I think for me that I want to point out is if you haven't heard of it before, so the way that I prepared this presentation, I'm just kind of clicking through it right now to show you the different slides. I mean, it's nothing incredible, but it has a lot of opportunity to it, like posting quotations and making it interactive. I did not create this presentation on my own, and it's not just a simple theme in Google Slides. It's from Slides Carnival. So if you haven't heard of that before, their slides they create like basically 30 or 40 slides for every theme. They're completely free. They have a pretty large database. You just have to be willing to sit down and click through and look at everything. They're all very visually appealing. They have these cool things like what I was showing you. So whenever I show a video, it's probably hard to see right now, but they pretty much always put in this little desktop icon thing, and you can embed the video or image right there as if they were looking at it on a screen, so it just looks visually appealing. And I think those are the little things that we can all do that make what we do more engaging and show kids in real time what it looks like to incorporate a more visual representation of this stuff in there. And then all of the Slides Carnival themes are PowerPoint. They have like a PowerPoint option where you can download it as a PowerPoint and then just edit the stuff to look like as you want it to look, or it's a Google Slides theme that you can make a copy of and then edit it in the exact same way. So I do not create PowerPoints anymore from scratch. Every single PowerPoint I use is off of Slides Carnival. Just makes it faster. So I'm a firm believer. Like I said, I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's not that I've in any way, I'm just finding ways to do what I do already and make it streamlined faster so that I can access the information better. So.
One other resource that my squad uses is Prepped, and I know like some people are like, oh, I don't want to buy Prepped because I don't know what's going to happen with the amendment. Okay, that's cool, but that's not the only thing it does. There is a Congress aspect to it, and it has all of the dockets from like everywhere on there, and the kids can actually click on it and they can put in outlines and they can put in sources, so like they're like automatically accessible to them via their laptops. They can put PDFs in there, they can put articles, they can actually cut cards on Prepped and have like preset arguments, and they can even put them into like the affirmative speech category or the negation speech category, or they can just make them neutral facts. They can also put in like questions that they think that they would like to ask in order to like lead their opponent into a specific argument that they would like to use. So that's something that we are utilizing on my team. They also have a mock round function. So those of you who would like to do like an extent mock round with your students, but you don't want to sit there and try to find or come up with extent questions or print out the paper and put those in envelopes and try to make sections and make them. Seriously, they can log in, they click on the round, it presents them with 3 extent questions, and it starts a timer for 30 minutes. Like, I don't even have to worry about it. They log in, they do it, it's done, it counts for a grade. And these kids can also upload their own questions, and they can come up with some pretty good ones. So it's a really nice little activity that you can utilize inside your classroom.
My kids, we also use Prep. My kids last year, once I had never used the Congress feature with them before last year, and once I showed them that they could track precedence and recency in there, they were like, I mean, you just saw these fireworks go off above their heads, and they're like, you mean I don't have to try to figure it out on paper? Because, I mean, to me, it's not hard to keep track of on paper, but if they skip writing one person down, they're already messed up, you know? So, and they love using technology. So in Prep, to being able to keep track of precedence and recency, especially for those kids that are learning to PO, it just made it so much easier for them too. So, questions?
And the Monday emails about how many articles they catch.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a great program.
Something-
It really is.
Something that I do on my squad specifically, like if you're someone who is, regardless of what the amendment says you're planning on using, it is a resource. I require my students to catch 10 articles a week, which is nothing. It's nothing. And I assign them a specific news source. So each kid is assigned a specific news source. So like one kid has the Christian Science Monitor, another one has I'm blanking on NPR and USA Today. If it's a large source like NPR, I can assign one kid, you are only doing articles that are domestic. You're doing foreign. So like you can actually split them up so where you can, depending on the size of your squad, how that works for you. Some news sources do have a limit on how many articles you can catch. And so I also keep a backup list of news sources so that whenever they hit their limit, they now go to their secondary one. But Prepped allows for you to see how many articles they're catching, what areas you're missing articles in. It allows for you to search through it like a database. And so if you've never used Prepped at all, it's really cool.
And you can first sign up for it with a free account. That's what I did to look at it and see how would I utilize with this with my team before I actually purchased it. And I had the kids also, they can create their own free accounts on there until you can figure out where you're going to get the money for it. And really, I mean, I think just saving on the headache and paper for extemp. And even if the TFA does decide to pass the amendment tonight, I think I'm still gonna use it because UIL is not gonna pass that amendment. And my kids need to know that when we get to UIL, they better not be, trying to cheat and get on the internet and get the whole team disqualified, because they will, have my foot in their butt. Not like that very much. So, and just being prepared, basically. So.
Are there any other questions for us? Yes, sir.
This is JP. Yeah. Because our district bought the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Bad. Bad.
I understand.
Like scary bad.
They're telling me I have to get like Google something certified. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, like
Oh, yeah.
our administrators have to be in our list of students, so they get every assignment.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's bad.
I would not be a teacher.
Embedding stuff into Google Slides.
Uh-huh.
How do you do it?
How do I get stuff into Google
How do you
Slides?
embed your YouTube videos into Google Slides?
It's
Can't do it. I can't.
Insert video.
insert video,
Yeah, well,
and then you
I-
resize it.
And then it's promise.
I
Because I tried
promise.
last week to the point I got
promise.
so frustrated.
But honestly,
It's here.
this is what I mean, because no one, like, I feel like I go to somebody and they're all like, nobody knows what they're doing. I mean, I have a teacher. I don't know if y'all know Larry Wisdom. Like, I used to teach
Yeah.
a band with him. He's a legend. And I told him to like take a screenshot of something. He went, okay, and he like brought up his phone to take a picture of his computer. So like, I understand. Not everyone really knows what's going on, but going to YouTube and typing in, or going to just typing in Google, like the forums that they have, any issues you have, like I was searching, I don't remember what it was I was asking I could do, like editing, like making a shape transparent in Google Slides. Like I just searched that, and there was already a forum that explained how to do it. So if you just
go to YouTube, trust YouTube.
yes, like use YouTube like Google, and there will be videos that show you step by step. I don't know how people make their living doing that kind of stuff, but they do.
Something else that happened to me whenever I started implementing this into my classroom, I found that Internet Edge doesn't work with our drives. I don't know why. So we have to use Chrome. And so teaching kids that there are different browsers was also something that we had to talk about. And I don't know why. I have a theory that it's kind of like Hulu and Netflix, like or Pandora, where it's like, are you still listening? Are you still watching? And it like gives you the option to tell it yes. Office 365 doesn't give you that. It just kicks you out. It just locks you out. So the kids actually have to log off of every single one of the tabs, open Chrome again, and log in again. I don't know why. But this is one of those things where I was saying, like, the troubleshooting that's going to happen in your classroom, it's going to happen. Something's going to go wrong, I promise you. And the day that the internet goes out in my school, because the server's down, yeah, you need to have a backup plan. You just do.
I think you might answer it. We install Edge this year in my district. I know it's
Yes.
Okay.
It's like Internet Explorer, but
Okay.
new.
Yeah.
So an emergency backup lesson, if you want it, if you have the game Apples to Apples, I make that an impromptu round in my classroom, like that. I just pull it out, and I'm like, okay, we're playing Apples to Apples right now, but we're not going to do it the same way. We're doing an extemp round, or an interp round, or impromptu.
No, I
I'm
got you.
remembering. And the kids at first are really confused, and then they figure out what I'm doing, and they're like, oh, this is fun. Okay. And then I'm like, hey, stop moving. Put your arms down. Stop waving it that way. Stop staring at one person. Speak louder. And then it becomes a quick little lesson for you.
But y'all should have each of our emails. If you need anything from us, let us know. We've got stickers up here
Please
for you
come get a
to
sticker.
prove you were here.